Welcome everyone, I'm the Depressed Eeyore, and this is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 8. Alright, this is week 2 on the earliest time slot, like usual, and the only changes to my box are I did 20 more summons on the equipment banner and got another nebulous robe, which is the robe that reduces reflect damage. With that, I went ahead and swapped that into Tensei Jessica, and since now I had reduced reflect damage, I was more comfortable taking a stronger staff. So I dropped the Scepter Divinity, which is the extra range staff, and replaced it with a Pale Staff, which does extra single target damage with single target skills, and also has a chance of doing, I believe it applies one random debuff. So Tensei Jessica is now no longer has the extra range, but has extra damage now. As for our opponent, it has a Kaya, it has Estelle, it's a rush box. That's pretty much all you need to know about it. It's a mixture of a little bit AoE and single target. A Kaya alone is going to be a pain because she can possibly provide additional 2 mobility and plus 30% attack to the entire group. So the key thing is if you're up against an Kaya is you probably need to back up as much as you can and try to buy time because the buff only lasts 2 turns. Anyway, that's pretty much it. I guess one thing to note is I'm currently on a winning streak, so the amount of points I've been getting per match has been a lot, which has been getting me through the rankings very, very quickly. So, and in a usual Langrisser fashion, the way they usually try to stop my winning streaks is either they send me to the sky map and or they send me against a rush box like this one. So here goes. And for those who are not familiar with my previous matches, or my usual complaints is I'm usually not very good against rush boxes. I went straight for Ares. I was more concerned about Ares than I was Akka. They do have a few tanks if for whatever reason I did ban their Akka, but even if I banned their Akka, they could take Estelle, which still provides +1 mobility. As always, I take Hilda. They banned my Assassin first, my long range, then they got rid of Rose and CL, which means they may go for debuffs. They grab a Kaya first. At this point, I was kind of torn on who all to pick because there's a lot of options. Rio, I'm not super familiar with, but I've been seeing him in the latest Chinese matches. They're doing their finals now, and or they're doing their elimination tournament now, and he's pretty brutal. He has self-reses, self-healing, and does quite a bit of damage, and he's long range. He can bypass guard in certain ways, and I believe he can ignore self-resing, which is pretty potent. Lucretia, there's a lot of threats here, so I'm trying to do the best I can here. Lucretia has really long range, and I'm more fearful of Lucretia one-shotting Hilda than I am Tensei Jessica. I can usually tank a shot from Tensei Jessica. Speaking of, I grabbed my Tensei Jessica because I needed some extra mobility for my side. At this point, I am down to 2 healers since they banned my Lycoris, so I'm going to be taking. I need to take a healer this run. They take Lycoris, not surprising. They're kind of trying to go. Since they banned my Rose and Seal, it's pretty obvious they're going to try to do some sort of AoE debuff stuff to me. So with that in mind, I went ahead and banned Bozel. I also got rid of Juggler because I didn't want to deal with his shenanigans. I got Florentia because they left me with her for some reason. Again, they're going for my long legs and long range essentially. They take Tensei Jessica, which is unfortunate. At this point, they hadn't banned my Helena, and if I pick Helena, there's a good chance they'll pick a tank. So I banned both their tanks, or at least their primary tanks, and I'm going to take Helena here. Helena has a lot of mobility if you can get her terrain down, and she's also reasonably tanky against magic, especially when she has angels. Also, Chivalry can make her immune to all debuffs temporarily, so that's kind of good. In any case, my opponent left me with Sophia and Tsubame as my final picks, and they went ahead and grabbed SPLN. At this point, their only faction buffers are SPLN and Lycoris. More than likely, Lycoris is not going to bring a faction buff, so the only buff that Lycoris is going to get is from Akaya, and possibly Tensei Jessica. I went ahead and got rid of their Act Agains, because giving it a rush box and Act Again on when their player 2 is just suicide. I'm completely fine with them taking either Bernhardt or Rose and Seal. Right now, they technically don't have a healer if they're going to intend on using Lycoris on offense, so they take a healer. And I grab Sabame because I don't really need the extra healing for this box. It's either I'm going to get rushed and overrun and immediately killed, or I'm going to survive and their buffs are going to wear off and I'm probably going to be just fine. So right off the bat, I went ahead and moved forward with Sabame to go ahead and get her stealth up. Unfortunately, my opponent does have AoEs, so it's not much I can work with. Now, to be fair, there's only one AoEer. Elwyn could possibly act again, though it's a bit of a reach to do that against Sabame at this point. But anyway, Elwyn, standard kit with faction buff. Lycoris, standard offense kit. Rosenseal, standard heal kit. The Kaya did not take the teleport act again ability, but does have wild power, which is expected. So wild power is the nasty one. It requires a wolf, which if she has the exclusive weapon, she definitely will have a wolf on the first turn. And essentially buffs everyone's attacks offense stats by 30% and gives additional 2 mobility. The only catch is it lasts 2 rounds and it has a long cooldown and it requires wolf souls, of course. She did bring her 3C, which means she's actually pretty dangerous with a single target strike that could bypass some of your magic defense and defense depending. It also will place a totem that could do a lot of nasty debuffs and reduce stats overall. Light of Genesis did not bring Strengthen, so that means the only stat buffs that are available right now is Elwyn's faction buff, which only applies to himself and Light of Genesis, and Akaya's Wild Power, which only lasts for 2 rounds. But she did bring Teleport, which is not surprising. Everything else is kind of essentially my standard kit. One thing to note is this Light of Genesis is 11%, huh? Okay, so it's a 5-star Light of Genesis. Got it. And it looks like this one's a 5-star Lycoris as well. Okay, good things to note. I think this one's a 5-star as well. Usually when you have like a max stars, it usually goes to a nice like round number ending in either 5 or 0. So that's kind of my way of telling if they're maxed out or not. I'm pretty sure Rosenseal and Elwyn are both 6 stars. Anyway, in any case, standard Sabame with Quick Step for extra mobility, standard Helena, Light of Genesis, standard. In fact, it's the same as my opponent's. Healing Florentia, and then Hilda is pretty standard. Hilda's faction buff will apply to everyone except for Helena, and Helena has Chivalry, so I'm good on the buff front. Anyway, with all that said and done, so one thing I was definitely wondering at the very beginning was how soon this buff was going to be set up, and I got my answer immediately, of course, which is good. I now know exactly what my opponent's attack range is for the most part, and it only lasts for 2 rounds. Now, this did actually put me in a bad situation, though, already, because of Elwyn. Elwyn does not have mixed troops, which means his Reign of Glory can actually move 4 spaces. So with his mobility buff, he can get to here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So he literally can attack anyone except for Sabame because she's stealthed. So either Helena or Light of Genesis. If I had faction buffed, I would only be able to guard one of them, not both. So with that in mind, I actually had to forego the faction buff, which sucks, because that means I don't have faction buff up, which means I don't get extra, strategies at the end of Florentia's turn. One thing to note, though, what's kind of funny about Akaya, since her summons are classified as units, or opposing units, when she used it for her spell, it actually gave me a strategy, as well as gave everyone a soldier buff. So that's kind of helpful. It's kind of a neat little counter for Akaya. Just bring Florentia and take advantage of that. Anyway, so with that, I had to forego to get a guard buff up to make sure I can guard. Because if I didn't, Elwyn would have just rushed forward and killed somebody. Alright, so yeah, Rosenseal's doing her thing. Honestly, for this fight, healers are kind of the least of our concern. The biggest concern right now, of course, is Lycoris. Right now, she can get all the way to here, which means her Dark Dragon Breath can reach both Helena and Light of Genesis. That's just with her regular movement. There's still teleport shenanigans, so with that, I went ahead and just moved back. Of course, my opponent was ready for it, and went ahead and teleported. Now this is actually really good for us in a couple of ways. One of those ways is since Light of Genesis act again, she actually burned through her entire buff. So she does that wild power is completely worn off on her. She did get some stacks of her Majestic Light, but besides that, she has no attack buff. Alright, so with all that said and done, we got Lycoris here. So now she's 2 steps forward, so at this point she can hit everybody almost. And there's not much I can do about it. So the only thing I can do is try to get Helena out of the way. Get some terrain down. And as you can see, rushes forward immediately. And from the very beginning, the moment that I counted the steps with the chorus, I already knew that Tsubame was dead. Even without the teleport, she could have easily done an AoE on Tsubame, revealed her, and then killed her with Elwyn. So at this point, unfortunately, Tsubame is just a lost cause, and I can't do anything about it. One thing to note, is there anything else I missed? No, I'm good. Okay. So I went ahead and healed in place. The purged any debuffs. And then I used this as an opportunity to do Sudden Strike. Now, I did have initiative because I'm first player, but I wanted to make sure that next round Helena can act if she needed to. So, here it is, Reign of Glory. Tsubame is unstealth, damaged, and not buffed. So, literally nothing, and he has first strike, so... Yeah, super overkill. He did not need to use Sword Soul. He could have just used a regular attack and would have gotten the kill. So with that, so moving in, this is actually really useful in a lot of ways. One is it's putting down terrain to overlap Lycoris' terrain. So that's the good news. Essentially I made a path for my group to actually get out of there, which is really helpful. I'm not too concerned about L1. I definitely needed Lycoris to be killed, because she does have a second AoE. Also, she did clock proc, so her Dark Despair is actually up and running again. Getting spammed by that will just end me, so... Going in here. Might have not needed Crystal Blossom. Yeah, we definitely didn't need it, but I'm going to do Crystal Blossom just to get rid of all the extra terrain here. And Elwyn has the equivalent of a Chivalry, so I believe he's immune to all debuffs right now, so I'm not going to be able to do anything with the fancy crystals. But I did some damage, which is fine. And then my opponent decided to go ahead and finish off Helena here. Yeah, even in crystal terrain, she just could not tank that much damage. So a few things to note right now. It's 4 on 3. I'm the 3, unfortunately. Elwyn's out here in the open. They have no tanks. Now out here in the open, Elwyn does have a self-res, which is annoying. But a few things to note right now. As far as where I moved, Light of Genesis can't reach, and Akaya can't reach, even with her mobility buff. So with all that, I'm actually, as long as I don't move too far forward, neither one of these characters can actually attack me. Rosenseal can move up to do some healing, and that's about it. So at this point, I kind of have free reign to kind of catch my breath and do whatever I need to do at this point. I did reapply my... I finally got up my faction buff at this point. One thing to note, when I did the heal with Florentia, I got another debuff from the terrain, and it was unfortunately passive disable, which means I'm not actually getting anything from winning strategy, which means when I got the kill on Lycoris, I didn't actually get the strategy or the stack of buff because of that. Anyway, Crystal Ward. Honestly, the only thing Rosenseal here is for is to help deal with debuffs, but I don't do debuffs, so it doesn't really matter. So I don't actually have enough mobility to reach Elwyn, so I have to teleport. So I teleport, get an act again, and since I don't have the extra range staff anymore, I have to move up to there to actually reach. I probably didn't need Light Embrace, but I did just in case. So self-res. The other thing to note is since it's 3 on 4, I actually will have initiative next round, which means they can't do anything to save L1. So I burned a self-res this round, and then next round I'm going to finish them off. And I'm just going to use this as an opportunity to go ahead and get my get some stacks up. I also went ahead and got rid of the passive disable with the healer there. That way I can start, you know, getting strategies again. And with that, I went ahead and just did Holy Light in place. Alright. So just a few things to note. Thanks to the Tenyu Breeze buff. What is that? No, sorry, that's a Breeze buff. Light of Genesis can reach. Akaya cannot reach right now, which is why I stayed in place. But Light of Genesis teleport is up again, so it is what it is. So, teleport shenanigans gets her in range for attacking. Go ahead and says hello to my my Hilda here. I'm reflecting some of the damage back with Crystal Molders. One thing to note, of course, is Light of Genesis has no attack buff. Elwyn never got up a faction buff, so still, even with raw attack, it still did pretty good damage. Alright, and then next round I can do an act again if I need to. And here's the 3C, which we probably don't often see. So, Spirit Tremble. So, Akaya had 30% attack buff, Spirit Tremble, which bypasses a percentage of, and I believe in this case it'll be M defense. And yeah, did about the same damage as Light of Genesis without any buffs. Now, she did have 3 stacks of this or whatever, but still, it was kind of disappointing. Let's read this thing again. Attacks at 20. If your int is higher, than attack, this attack will deal magic damage. Okay, her int is just a little bit higher, so it should have done int. So unfortunately, that was kind of disappointing. Now it does include, for those who are wondering about the melee troops, the 3C does add in the melee troops as attackers. You might have saw the bones being thrown. We also got this Totem of Fear. All enemies within 4 blocks have their attack and defense reduced by 10% and receive 2 random buffs at the start of the turn. So unfortunately, we're going to have to deal with that. It does make us more vulnerable to being hit, but since both the attackers have already gone, I'm kind of safe at this point. So went ahead and moved in. So unfortunately, yeah. So I went ahead and gonna go ahead and move in. Werewolves are demons, so Holy Light does extra damage to them. Just immediately take her out. So at this point, there are no attack buffers, and all that's left is Light of Genesis and a healer. And I got a Thorns proc, by the way, so that killed her. She was using a Pale Staff. That's part of the reason why I didn't use a Pale Staff for a while, is because Reflect damage would just kill Light of Genesis. But one of the few times Hilda actually got to do some tanking, which was kind of nice. Unfortunately, Tsubame was just sacrificed for no reason, unfortunately. I mean, it did bait them to come out, which was probably to my benefit, but still losing Tsubame early really kind of sucked. Alright, anyway, let's keep on going. Alright, as I mentioned in the previous battle, I'm on a winning streak. So that victory we just got me 52 points or something like that, something ridiculous. And that was at the beginning of Silver 1. So essentially, if I win again, I go to Gold 3. And like I mentioned in the previous battle, anytime I'm on my way to getting to Gold 3 or whatever, or on a long winning streak, I end up getting either the Sky map, which I hate, and or go up against a rush box, which I also hate. Sure enough, this is not as bad of a rush box as the previous one. There's no Akaya, there's no Estelle. This seems to be more of a assassin AoE slow tank push box, so something a little bit more standard. But it's on the Sky map, which sucks, so not much I can do about it. I banned Rian first. Honestly, out of everyone, I think Rian would have been the worst. There was just so many things I was concerned about, such as SP Sigma and, of course, all the variety of long-range assassins. They go straight for my Risen Seal, so I was like, alright, they're probably going to try to go debuff if possible. They grab Hilda, so they're actually, as mentioned, they're going to go tank push. At this point, I went ahead and just started taking out some of their primary casters, since they obviously banned my Risen CL, so debuffs are an option for them. I grab my Hilda. and they go for my other 2 healers. So all I have left is Sophia, or Marielle if I want to use her. They got Kyura. At this point, Kyura has no faction buff, so I went ahead and banned Bozel, who is both a debuffer and a faction buffer. Got rid of their Act Again. I did notice they only had 3 healers, so taking out their Act Again will force them to take a healer if they want one. And at this point, I have to take a healer, so I take Sophia. This does give me some buff flexibility, which is nice. They go for my long-range mages. They take a Rose and Seal. I go ahead and go for Sigma and Juggler at this point. I mean, I was kind of torn on what I had to deal with. All of them suck. Everything that remains is either AOE. Any remaining offense is either going to be AOE or long-range movements. So there's not much I can do about it. I felt more comfortable that I can survive a Sherry, even though SP Sherry is definitely very dangerous now. But beyond that, I was kind of comfortable with everything else. I have Hilda, so I don't have to deal with any push shenanigans from old Landius there. Alright, so I take Zerida. I was really torn on what sort of... I definitely wanted an assassin, because my opponent was going tank push. I just wasn't sure which assassin I wanted. I went with Zerida, just because she's pretty... If you can get her set up, she can definitely kill something pretty easily. And she's pretty mobile, too. They go for my long legs, which is fine. I had no intentions of ever picking Helena, unless... except for maybe as a last pick. Something to try to control the center with. Which is not going to really matter in this match. My opponent went SP Sherry, not surprising. So at this point I was like, I'm getting rid of your offense. You can either take another healer or you can take another tank. Which on this map, another tank is actually kind of dangerous. I take Kyura, since I need more assassins just in case I lose one. This left me with Lustriel and Freya. I'm picking Lustriel just because, but in hindsight, I think Freya would have actually been the stronger pick for this map. My opponent was very reliant on getting, using high mobility, long range, and guard bypass. With 2 tanks, I can clog up the path to my other characters, and that would have been a lot more useful. With just 1 tank, you run the risk of just having either one person always exposed, or you leave an opening for Sherry to walk around you essentially. So I don't think Lustriel is the best pick for this one. So there you go, Lustriel. And they take a tank. So like I said, 2 tanks on this map is actually super dangerous. So the biggest issue in this match is the fact I'm second player. Like, my opponent knows they're first player, which means they know they have initiative. Already, Kyura moved the maximum distance she can go, and she can already reach to here. All of her skills are 3 range. If she has a staff, they're 4 range. So right now, right off the bat, she can already reach some people. If she's 4 range, she can literally attack the entire front row right now, which is ridiculous. And then, of course, Sherry could go to here and then go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Technically do Shadow Raid here and then go around and kill somebody. Like, obviously I'm not going to let that happen, but it's the pressure's on. Like, I have assassins, they have assassins, but they go first, and that's the situation I have to deal with. Sherry is going Angels. Does have Shadow Raid. Shadow Raid by itself will only attack alone, unless you're attacking a melee, in which case your Shadow Raid is going to do less damage. Raging Storm, pretty standard setup there. Hilda went a Broken Arrow, so possible to reflect against physical attacks. Landius, standard Landius. Actually, this Landius is Spears, by the way, not Cav. And then Rose and Seal actually took Flying Troops, that way she can actually float above terrain, and went heals. I guess a few things to note is there's only... the 2 faction buffers can only buff themselves. There are no sources for attack buffs for either of their actual assassins, which is probably my only saving grace here. So yeah, you can see how far they can already go. And I can't... the best I can do is try to bait one of them to attack, and hope they don't have Twilight Star, in which case my last rites might be enough for me to tank. but that's asking quite a bit. So at this point, I'm moving back. I'm more or less assuming my opponent has 4 range at this point. But even with that assumption, I have to go into danger at some point because the mist is going to close in on me. But for right now, I just stayed back. Use Mass Heal to buff everybody. I was also staying back in hopes of getting a Tenyu breeze, but I didn't. So I didn't pay attention here. Obviously, you can see that she attacked from 4 range. Now the good news is she didn't get crit because of Hilda, but I failed to take into account that she does actually have 4 range with the staff, which is why she did less damage. But yeah, I didn't take that into account. I could try to counterattack, but she's at full health, so it's possible Last Rites will proc. Even with Twilight Star, I wasn't comfortable that I was going to be able to get the kill. I think in hindsight I might have been able to pull it off. The biggest issue is the sorceresses, but like I said, with Twilight Star I should have been able to get the kill just with Kayura alone. But I was too cautious here. Instead, I went ahead and moved forward with Zerda, which, as you already know, Kayura has 4 range, so that actually puts her in kill range. So that was not very smart of me. Right, and at this point I was like, you know what, I'll just use Sophia as bait. She can tank a hit. So they move in. And at this point I have to push forward. So me hanging back is super costly for multiple reasons. You can get trapped in this map very easily. This pillar can only be flown over, you can't walk over it. Which means there are only 3 ways to the center. There's this spot here, this path here, this path here, and then of course the long roundabout way, which you're not going to be able to do because of the mist eventually. And they have 2 tanks, so they can clog up these spots, and I can just be completely snuffed out just by mist alone. It's very, very dangerous. So yeah, my opponent's just rushing. They're not even that. It's either they'll get kills or they're going to block me out. So at this point, I attacked. This was not smart. What I should have done, because you're going to see right now, I'm going to do normal damage, and it almost kills. If it had critted, it would have killed, but it wasn't going to crit because of Hilda, because Hilda's Bloody Revenge. If I had attacked with Illustrial first, like just did a normal attack on something, that would have procced Hilda's Bloody Revenge, and then put it on cooldown and allow Kayura to go in and kill. That would have gotten me a kill right off the bat, and then I would have won. Like, at that point, my opponent would just be screwed. But I didn't do that, so we got this going for us for now. So yeah, I made some, much like most of my, possible gold 3 matches, I tend to make dumb mistakes like this one I mentioned earlier. So, pretty much just gave them my Zerida. Decides to move back. This actually was, if she had stayed in place, that would have actually been better for her. Because then I would not be able to guard bypass. Like, with the extra guard range and all that, Hilda would have had guard here, would have been just fine. And this would have blocked me completely from getting into this area. But since she didn't do that and left me an opening, this is Grasslands in the middle, by the way. So Illustrial could go ahead and do guard bypass here. Don't know if my opponent had Last Rites or not, but if it wasn't enough, and went ahead and killed one of their assassins. So this was Shadow Raid in melee range. So this includes the angels, which is nice, but it means that your ranged attack is now halved with Sherry. So Sherry did an attack and then backed off, and that was pretty much it, which was fine by me. Right now, my concern now is trying to make sure I can at least get out of this little death hallway as the mist close in. So with that, Hilda blocks that route. Not much I can do about it. I went ahead and just did an attack here. I'm not going to get any progress here, not with the Rosen Seal up. I just try to push this far forward as I could. But as you can see, both the tanks are in position. Now, a few things to note is both tanks, their guard's actually about to wear off. This is something I was kind of confused about. I was keeping track of Hilda's guard, but I wasn't keeping track of Landius. I was keeping track of Hilda's guard because she's the one that's guarding Sherry right now. And I needed to make sure, and I needed to deal with Sherry. She's kind of the last threat as far as assassins are concerned. Went ahead and did rewind, mostly just to heal everybody and reapply buffs. So as you can see, and since Rosen Seal is flying, she can stand on the pillar. And she goes straight into the 3C. So she's healing turret for now. So yeah, as you can see, at this point I literally cannot get into the center. Well, I'll take that back. Everyone but Kaira can't get into the center. Kaira can get in the center simply through teleportation. So yeah, essentially I have 1, 2, 3, about 3 rounds before I have the mist to deal with, if I don't find a way to punch a hole through this. But like I mentioned before, their guard buffs are wearing off. If Landius had held back on his guard buff for 1 turn, they would have actually been able to hold this pretty easily. But because of that, Landius went ahead and moved all the way up there for some reason. I don't know. 1, 2. I don't know why he moved there in particular. I'm guessing they're trying their best to try to block me as best as possible. I mean, he could have stood there and at least would have kept Illustrial out of range. But yeah, I don't know. In any case, I attack with Illustrial. I do a normal attack. The main reason why I did a normal attack was I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get kill or not. In hindsight, even with Last Rites, I think I could have gotten kill. But I was very, very worried. I had the debuff for minus 15% damage. But the other thing I had was I still had the cooldown for Roundabout. So if I had moved here and done Emerald Crusher, and it fails to kill, I wouldn't be able to move back. Actually, in hindsight, I wouldn't be able to move back anyway. Let's see. Passive, active. Oh, that's only for the active. Okay, yeah. So at this point, I could have moved again if I had it off cooldown, but I didn't. So if I had gone to 2 range, done the Emerald Crusher, and failed to kill, I would have essentially given Illustrial to Sherry at that point. Like I said, in hindsight, I think I would have been able to get killed. Sherry has no buffs, so I think it would have been fine. But I was playing very, very, very cautiously. At this point, I wasn't as worried since they kind of gave me a way to actually get into the middle now. So at this point, I kind of was comfortable with taking my time. So healer passes turn, and then I went ahead and moved in to try to finish off Sherry. Obviously, I wasn't expecting a kill here because it's Angels, and Angels reduce magic damage by 45%. And unfortunately, the 3C hit the Angels, and then my Assassins hit Sherry. So unfortunately, the attack order just was not in my favor. Yep. And with this, I just teleported right next to Sherry just to kind of show, hey, I can go wherever I want now. Again, AoE heal mostly just to reapply buffs. Unfortunately, the talent buffs only last for 2 rounds. Alright, so 3C. Raging Storm. But I win through counterattack damage. Now, funny enough, if Sherry was equipped with her exclusive shirt, which gives her the ability to self-res off of counterattack damage, that shirt would have made it so she survived her own attack. In which case, then her 3C would heal her back to full, and then her 3C would stun Hilda, and the stun would not be able to be dispelled. Which would have been interesting. I still would have been able to get a kill off of Sherry after the fact. But then it would have been at least a little bit messy, because essentially the tanks would start going in and trying to kill my assassins while my Hilda was stunned. But since she didn't have the exclusive armor, She just killed herself. And since she killed herself, it didn't proc anything. It didn't proc the self heal or the stun. You actually have to live long enough for the stun to apply for that attack, it looks like. So, something to note. Anyway, again, did some tanking for once. Sorry, that's not me. Did some tanking for once, which is nice. Zerida did absolutely nothing. I was very dumb about it. I was overly cautious again. If I wasn't so cautious, I think I would have won a lot sooner. I could have easily gotten Kyura killed if I attacked in the correct order. But I didn't, so that was unfortunate. If I had kept Zerida alive, that would have also helped a lot. Even if I had kept her back for a round, eventually my opponent would have had to push forward, else they would have given up the initiative. So, mixture of impatience and overly cautious, I guess, for that match. But I won, so that's really all that matters. And with that win, like I mentioned before, I got like 52-something points, and with that, it got me straight to gold 3. So with that, I got to my goal. I was a little unsure if I wanted to go for that goal after my 3-loss streak during the placement matches, but as you can see, I'm now on a winning streak. Essentially, those three placement matches I lost are the only losses I've had so far, which is nice. Overall, I really like the formation. Some people in the I guess in the Discord chat on the Langrisser Discord channel or whatever, there's a Apex channel or whatever, and some of the people are like, yeah, this is like the first season where I felt like I was actually happy about every character in my box. And that's kind of how I feel too. All the previous seasons, it was almost like I had to pray that my opponent did not ban certain characters in a certain order, else I was kind of just crippled. Like, season 1 was literally, please don't ban Estelle. Because what would usually end up happening is they ban Estelle, I grab Freya, and then they would ban, my 2 princess faction buffers, and at which point I had no buffs. But now I have multiple characters with faction buffs, I have multiple characters with attack buffs and defense buffs, and, actual things that help, which is really nice. Obviously, a lot of the newer characters are very, very helpful. I know some people talk about power creep in this game. Honestly, it's more utility creep than power creep, in my opinion. Like, Lana is still very good at what she does. The problem is all she does is damage. I guess she technically can summon, but no one does that anymore. But it's like, all right, yeah, great, Lana, you can do damage, but Rachel here can do damage and passively heal and passively cleanse. Or hey, Tensei Jessica can passively heal, attack buff other people or herself, can teleport, all sorts of good stuff. And then, of course, got Lucretia, who's like, I can, buff everybody, buff everyone's attack, reduce cooldowns. I have a pet, I can swap with that pet. So it's just a lot of the later characters. It's not necessarily that they're more powerful, it's just they can do a lot more. They do more than just their standard I hit you really hard roll. And that's really kind of what stands out about these. And that's kind of why I like this box. I mean, a lot of these characters can do multiple things. Marielle can heal, can be an assassin. Kyura can passively heal while attacking, can possibly gospel buff. Lycoris has 2 roles, literally. And you got Tensei Jessica and Lucretia that can also passively heal and all that good stuff. Sherry you can make either into an assassin or just a bruiser type. A lot of good stuff here. For now, there's probably not going to be any changes to this box for quite some time. Obviously, I might make some tweaks here and there based off the gear I pick up. I definitely would like to get a Twilight Star for Illustrial. That'll make her a little bit more reliable. Illustrial is probably the most... I guess Illustrial can potentially be a weakness in this box simply because certain maps, like the Sky map we just did, Illustrial only works really well in areas with lots of defensive terrain. Also, her guard bypass only works in places that have grasslands, hills, and forest, which of course the Sky map doesn't have very much of. But still, even with that, she still got a kill. She killed Kyura and did some heavy damage to Sherry. Could have possibly killed her alone. So out of everyone, she honestly did rather well. At this point, everyone's been kind of doing... I've actually been able... Since I have so many actual threats in my box now, my opponent actually has choices to make whenever they ban things from my box, which means there's actually chances for me to use characters I usually don't get to use, like Helena. I didn't get to use Helena at all last season. Literally everyone just banned her immediately. Obviously because they know what she can do with her exclusive armor and all that. But now I can use her, and she's really, really helpful, and having the extra mobility is really helpful. The only characters I would be interested in swapping in and out from time to time is characters like Toa and Rosen Ciel. But the situation is I don't really have room for them, per se, and I definitely like having Tsubame around. Obviously, if I was to replace someone, it'll probably be Tsubame, but I don't know. Zerad is also kind of questionable nowadays, simply because she has so much setup now to actually, start doing her assassination. But once you get her set up, she does pretty well. And she's a faction buffer, so that's always good. So yeah, like I said, I'm pretty happy with this box. I'm able to use some units I never get to use, like Tsubame, and actually use her effectively now. That's really nice. In any case, the season's still going. My winning streak's still going. So it's possible I may go even higher in the ranks. We'll see how it goes. I'm probably going to slow down a little bit as usual once I hit gold 3. And who knows? Maybe I'll get to gold 2, which is the highest I've ever been. I don't expect to get much higher than that though. Simply because the opponents are getting more difficult and I tend to make mistakes. In any case, I've rambled on long enough. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I am The Depressed Dealer. This was Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 8. I'll see you guys later.